Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle Haas. And in this video, we're taking a look at GoCollect's hottest trending comics for the week of May 14th. Now, for those who don't know, GoCollect puts out a bi-weekly article that switches between hottest comics and trending comics. This week, we're taking a look at trending comics, which is a more curated list to really see what books are starting to move a lot in terms of volume of sales in the market. But before I get into the video, if you guys could drop me a like or comment or subscribe if you're enjoying the content, help support the channel doing those things, I would appreciate it. But let us get into this video here today. And of course, this article is always written by Matt Tuck. I'll put a link in the description if you guys want to do further reading. But let us start it off with the number 5 book. And this one is a really cool one to talk about. In fact, all the books on the list this week are very, very cool ones to talk about. But what do we got to talk about here in the number 5 slot? Of course, we're talking about Silver Surfer number 4, which is actually new to the list, sitting in the 87th slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this would be the classic, iconic, I would say, cover of Silver Surfer and Thor done by John Buscema, a book that came out in 1968 written by Stan Lee, 1969 written by Stan Lee. And this would be the 4th issue of that amazing Silver Surfer run, and probably one of the books and one of the covers that every comic book collector would want to have in their collection. Now, of course, outside of this book being desirable simply because it is just that desirable in the market, we are quickly approaching Thor, Love and Thunder. So my suspicion as to why this book is starting to pick up steam is that, everything Thor is really starting to heat up in the market. People are thinking about this character. People are thinking about those books that they want to collect. Of course, it's been longly anticipated that we're going to be getting Silver Surfer in the MCU at some point in the future. But a lot of things are pushing to perhaps these two characters maybe having a moment at some point in the future. Now, it may not come at Thor, Love and Thunder, but you got to imagine that when these two characters meet, in the MCU, there will likely be a part in a movie that references this iconic cover. And actually, when I think about it, I did an impromptu stream the other day, and someone in the chat asked me, if I had $1,000 to invest in a book, what book would I pick? And I didn't really have a clear-cut answer in my mind. But when I think about this book, if I had $1,000, I would definitely consider this book right here. And speaking of those numbers, let's take a look at them right now. See what this thing is selling at. As we go here, 9.8s, 24 on the census. Fair market value suggested to be $115,000. There was a sale 1 year ago around the $90,000 range. That was in June 19th of 2021 on Heritage. So it would be interesting to see what this book would sell for, today, or what it would sell for, say, when we get that moment in the MCU. Here you see 9.6s, fair market value $19,000, 30-day moving actually around the $20,000, almost $21,000 range, which is actually a little bit down from the $25,000 range previously. So you can see it definitely hit a spike with 33,000 and then kind of cooled back down to 21,000 here. And then, kind of in the mid-grade range, what I was talking about, you can see 6.0s, 298 on the census, fair market value around that $1,000 range. So you can get a really nice presenting mid-grade of this around the $1,000 level. And then down here at the bottom, GoCollect has the fair market value around the $400, $300 range or so. But, when I go into eBay looking for this book, you'd be hard-pressed to find a decent copy selling for less than $400. All right, let's go on now to the 4th hottest trending comic of the week. And the 4th hottest trending comic of the week is actually another cool one. This is Uncanny XMen number 244, new to the list, sitting in the 74th slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this would be the first appearance of the character known as Jubilee, a book that came out in 1989, written by Chris Claremont. Now, I'm sure all you guys know Jubilee. I think she became a fan favorite amongst comic book collectors, coming off the heels of that X-Men animated show that we got in the early 90s. And as Matt points out in the article, one of the reasons why this book could be heating up is we're starting to slowly hear a little bit more conversation about what is to be expected for the X-Men 97 series. I think it's fair to assume that Jubilee is likely going to be an important character amongst the ensemble of characters in that show. I mean, she certainly was kind of I would say the catalyst to the animated show. I mean, we definitely followed her story into the X-Men team, and from there kind of, followed her relationship with Wolverine, and then we would eventually, get adopted by, the more prime characters. But, for that reason, because she was sort of the vehicle and the POV into the show, I think a lot of collectors, have a fondness towards this character of Jubilee. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity for this character going into X-Men 97, and I think a lot of collectors are thinking the same thing, which is why this book is starting to show up on this hot list here. And as we dig into the numbers, let's take a look here at the 9.8s. There's actually one 9.9 on the census, but don't need to talk about that one. Census here says 1,032 on the 9.8 grades. Fair market value suggested to be around the 350 range, 30-day moving at 383. This is down, of course, like most books in 2021, where we saw record highs around the $539 level. You can see here from the graph, had the big shoot up in 2021 and then slowly it's been cooling down. I mean, still kind of on a decline overall, but generally speaking, we're starting to feel the floor around this $380 level. And then, of course, down here at the bottom, 1989 book, you're not going to see it slabbed at the low grade. But when you go onto eBay looking for raw copies of this thing, I mean, typically you could see some maybe low grade stuff selling around that $25 range. And then if you're trying to, get a near mint, high grade, potential 9.8 candidate, you're looking to spend around the $45, $50, $60 range or so. All right, let's go on now to the third hottest trending comic of the week. And the third hottest trending comic of the week is another cool one here. This is actually Sensational SheHulk, #1, new to the list, sitting in the 71st slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, this would be the first issue of the Sensational SheHulk series, a series that was written by John Byrne and is typically heralded as being the most iconic and most celebrated She-Hulk run in comic books. Now, like I mentioned, this is a book written and drawn by John Byrne, one that came out in 1989. And you can already see from the cover that she's, doing this kind of fourth wall breaking, self-referencing thing where she's sort of making fun of, her Savage She-Hulk #1 issue that came out in the series before this one. And this whole run would actually be a lot of, fourth wall breaking and references, to herself and to the characters and to the Marvel universe. I mean, she was kind of doing the Deadpool thing before the Deadpool thing really became the Deadpool thing. And a lot of people are starting to think that this book might have a huge significance to the She-Hulk show that's coming out later this year. There's a lot of talk right now that She-Hulk is going to be kind of a comedy series, maybe doing a little Ally McBeal thing. And if they go that route and that tone with this character, this will be the, comic book series that a lot of people, equate to the show. And for that reason, this could be the book right here that definitely heats up in the market. But as we dig into the numbers for this one, we'll take a look here. Let's see, 9.8s have 438 on the census. Fair market value suggested to be around the $230 range. 30-day moving, actually around 246. So kind of trading right in line. This, of course, like some of the other books we talked about, is down from its record high of 2021. You can see, actually, it definitely has had kind of the cooling off like the Jubilee book has had. But there is a little bit of an uptick here, as we kind of get closer and closer to the show. So it definitely feels like, this is a book that could really, really start to heat up once again. And then down here at the bottom, of course, 1989 book. You're not going to see it slabbed at the low grade, but typically speaking, when I go into eBay looking for raw copies of this thing, I see them being sold around that $35 to $40 range or so. All right, let's go on now to the second hottest trending comic of the week. And the second hottest trending comic of the week is a very, very cool one that I personally need to add to my collection at some point. This is Fantastic Four #46, new to the list this week, sitting in the 79th slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this would be the book written by Stan Lee and drawn by Jack Kirby that came out in 1966 and would feature the first appearance of the character known as Black Bolt. Now, Black Bolt, of course, is the leader of the Inhumans. He's got the very awesome superpower in that when he makes a sound, he causes mass destruction. And for that reason, he actually is not allowed to talk, which, side note, is such an awesome device for a character. And so it's really a shame that this book wasn't really seeing the light of day for a long time due to the fact that when we got that Inhumans show some years back, it really hurt the brand of a lot of Inhumans characters. And this was a book that was really, really plummeting in the market. You could definitely find copies of this thing being sold for really, really cheap. But, coming off a certain movie with a certain character that, of course, I'm trying not to go into spoilers, but you guys are already watching this video. There is a certain factor that made this book get hot recently, and due to that, this book definitely saw a big spike in the market. In fact, it was on the Go Collect hot list a couple weeks ago, coming off the rumors, I guess that maybe it fell off, or maybe the floor has sort of leveled with this book, so that's kind of why it's finding itself back on the trending list, because, people are thinking, hey, I do want to pick up a copy, or maybe they're thinking, now that the initial hype is done, I can find a copy now. But either way, this is a book that is really moving in the market due to the excitement of a certain film. And as we dig into the numbers for this one, we'll take a look here. Of course, Silver Age book, a little harder to pinpoint down this one. Let's focus in here on the 8.5 grade because this has a 30-day moving. 8.5 grade here, we see 156 on the census. Fair market value suggested to be $1,650. 30-day moving around the $1,800 level. So definitely a book that, along most grades, I would say is selling at its all-time record high. You can see this is actually a book that spiked all the way back in 2015 when we originally got that Inhuman show. I think that would actually line up. That seems right as far as the year, but due to the recent excitement, you can see the graph just exploding here in 2022. This is pretty consistent along most of the grades where they're setting their all new record highs. Of course, there's no 9.8s or 9.6s that have gone on sale in this calendar year, so it would be interesting to see where this book would sell if it did sell at that level. And then here at the 3.0 range, 30-day moving around the $250 level, and that's usually what I'm seeing on eBay as well. If you were to go on there looking for raw copies of this thing at the low grade, you're going to be looking to spend around that $200 price point, I would say, at minimum. But Black Bolt, a very cool character. It'll be interesting to see where this book goes from here. Let me know in the comments, what do you guys think about the Black Bolt character and the Inhumans in general? Are you guys fans of the Inhumans? I mean, to me, I always had a little bit of a bias against them because I felt like Marvel is trying to push them over the X-Men due to the whole licensing with Fox and stuff like that. What do you guys think about the Inhumans overall? But speaking of X-Men, let's move on now to the hottest comic of the week, the hottest trending comic of the week. And this one right here is a big book, one that I'm sure all of you guys know, one that I'm sure is on most comic book collectors' want list. This one, of course, is Giant Size X-Men #1, up 37 slots, sitting in the 47th slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this would be the first appearance of the all-new X-Men team that would feature Storm, Colossus, Nightcrawler. It would be the third appearance of Wolverine, or however you want to kind of slice it, a book that came out in 1975, written by Chris Claremont. And this is just one of those grails, like I mentioned, every comic collector would want to have in their collection. I mean, it features 3 major first appearances. It kind of represents like the new era of the X-Men team, the team that everybody loves, which of course is everyone's favorite superhero team. Now, why has this book been trending with this week? Well, there's a lot of reasons that it could be, moving up the charts. Of course, there's been mass speculation that the X-Men are going to be the next big thing in the MCU, and all the X-Men keys have been moving, but who knows when we're actually going to see those things happen. So this is a book that really shot up during the boom of 2021 and actually had a pretty big pullback overall. I mean, Hulk 181, Giant Size X-Men 1, books like this definitely had their major corrections, and I think now is sort of the time when people are starting to think, okay, this might be a good new floor to buy back into this book. The prices are starting to settle overall, and we're finally starting to see some of those seeds being planted. I mean, in a certain movie that shall not be named, we got a certain character related to the X-Men that showed up in that certain movie that shall not be named. And as a result, maybe people are thinking, hey, maybe we're going to start to see more mutants at some point in the future. I mean, even when I think about the character of Storm right there, we know that, she has connections to Black Panther. It's very, very possible that maybe later on in the year when we get Black Panther #2, maybe they'll lay the foundations for Storm. We also know that Deadpool is going to have a movie in the MCU eventually. We'll get Deadpool #3. Of course, in that universe, we had Colossus. So maybe Colossus will make an appearance in Deadpool #3. And that'll definitely bring a lot of attention back to this book right here. But as we dig into the numbers for this one, we'll take a look here at some of the various grades. 9.8 has 209 on the census. Fair market value suggests around the $47,000 range. 90-day moving right there at fair market value at $47,000. 9.6, 391 on the census. Fair market value $13,000. 30-day moving is actually above that at $14,000. But this is in comparison to the 1 year where you could see it being sold at the $18,000 range. So this is a book, like we mentioned, had that massive shoot up and then a pretty large pullback overall. And then, of course, as we go down here across the different grade levels, 7.0, 4,500, 6.0, 4,200, 4.0, 2,600. And then down here at the bottom, at the lowest grade, even when I look at raw prices, Go Collect has the fair market value at the 1.8, around the $2,100 range, but the 30-day moving for that is $1,586. But I would say that that was still a pretty good deal overall. This is a very, very desirable book in the market. And even when you're looking for raw copies of this thing, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find this book being sold under that $2,000 level, even if it's a pretty beat-up copy, because everybody loves X-Men. Everybody can't wait for Storm, Colossus, Nightcrawler to show up in the MCU. And when they do, who knows what the ceiling for that book will be. Anyways, that is all I have for this video. That was Go Collect's trending comics for the week. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys have any of these books? Drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and I will see you in the next one.